Times Now Live. My name is Amita Wadhwa. Let's begin with the headlines. With Bihar headed for elections, Rahul Gandhi accuses Modi government of not just vote chori but even bijli chori, as vowing that no blackout can silence his campaign. Reports flood that TikTok's website is accessible in India, sparking speculations, but the government clarifies that the platform still remains blocked. Even as TikTok remains inaccessible, the Congress has launched a fresh attack on the Modi government that the party accuses the Prime Minister of going soft on China. Dream 11 has now pulled the plug on real money gaming, as the move comes after a new law banning such services came into effect. SP's Pooja Pal was shown the door within hours of hailing Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. Now she claims that her life is under threat. The Mekadatu water war is back with focus, with Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah demanding a reservoir on Kaveri. In a direct swipe at Tamil Nadu, he is asked why the project is being imposed. So first up, let's begin with a breaking update. What we are learning, that the FBI agents have been raiding Trump's former National Security Advisor John Bolton's DC home in a high-profile national security probe. The federal agents who busted into Bolton's home at 7 a.m. in an investigation that was ordered by FBI Director Kash Patel. Now, this incidentally comes just days after Bolton had criticized Trump over tariffs, especially his selective mistreatment of India compared to other nations like China. Soon after, Trump posted on Truth Social of Make America Great Again. This development seems to have taken place as far as John Bolton is concerned, where this has been a high-profile investigation that is now been taking place, as the federal agents started to conduct their searches at about 7 a.m. In this investigation, what is being said has been ordered by Kash Patel. This development is coming in when it comes to the FBI raids that has been taking place at Donald Trump's former aide on a day after his criticism on the tariffs that has been imposed by the Trump administration. Rishabh is connected with us. Rishabh, what is the connection now being drawn here as far as when it comes to this investigation that has been ordered by the FBI and John Bolton?
Well, see, this is something that wasn't offing, that is for sure. The way Bolton had gone ahead and has clearly rebuked Donald Trump, even after being one of the closest associates of Donald Trump in past. It was something that wasn't offing, is what we're given to understand. Now that FBI agents had raided the Washington, D.C. residence of Bolton, it is now being said that, the operation took place around 7 a.m. And in the Maryland area. And it was very clear. FBI Director Kash Patel had said that it was carried out under his order. And very clearly, when the orders have come from top, it is going to be very clear, and as Kash Patel has said, that no one is above law. But if we talk about how this is going on, in an interview with the Indian media as well, Bolton had called Donald Trump an aberrational president and remarked that the India-US relationship is in very bad place. That is something that started as the...
So he has been quite vocal. Let's get in a word from Sushant Sareen, who is also connected with us. Sushant, good morning. When we speak of John Bolton, as we've been saying that he has criticized Washington's confused approach towards India, and he's also questioned about the tariff hike. Is he now being targeted?
Look, it's quite clear he's being targeted, but not just because of his criticism of the Trump administration on India. In fact, ever since he was sacked as National Security Advisor by Donald Trump in his first term, John Bolton has been extremely critical of Donald Trump. So this problem between the two of them goes back many years. And he has been one of those few people who has not, held back in hitting out at Donald Trump and questioning his policies. Now, could this be a purely personal pique on the part of the American president and his loyalists to target John Bolton, which is, again, a very third world, fourth world kind of very dictatorial, this kind of stuff happens in totalitarian states? Or is it that there is something more to it than meets the eye, which is that John Bolton is accused of some crime under the American legal system? Now, that crime could just be a fig leaf for getting even with him, or could be something, which is actually substantial. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think the Indian factor is only peripheral out here. It's probably not the primary reason for going after it.
All right, Shashank, thank you very much. One of the many reasons that are being cited as far as his criticism of those steep tariffs, as we talk about the India factor, is something that he has been quite vocal when it comes to raising objections on the decision taken by the Trump administration. But when we speak of Donald Trump himself, let's take a look as far as when it comes to the FBI raiding John Bolton's residence. Donald Trump seems to have lashed out at his former national security advisor, where he has called Bolton as a lowlife. Trump says that he was never a fan and accused him of being bad at his job. Now, this is another development that is coming to light. Let's first listen in to what the US president has to say.
No, I don't know about it. I saw it on television this morning. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. He's a real sort of a lowlife. When I hired him, he served a good purpose because, as you know, he was one of the people that forced Bush to do the ridiculous bombings in the Middle East. Bolton, he wants to always kill people, and he's very bad at what he does. But he worked out great for me because every time he doesn't talk, he's like a very quiet person, except on television. If he could say something bad about Trump, he'll always do that.
Well, Mr. Fabian is also connected with us. Good morning to you, Mr. Fabian. John Bolton, who is said to have served as Donald Trump's third national security advisor for 17 months, it seems that there has been a fallout that has happened between the relations between the two, as John Bolton is now being investigated.
Well, when John Bolton was appointed as NSA, Trump was all praise for him. That is during Trump's first presidency. Later, of course, when Trump became a candidate for the second time, not the second time, but for the third time, he was defeated earlier. Then, of course, John Bolton started attacking him, saying that, electing him will be a great disaster. And then, of course, he also wrote a book also. So Trump has much against him personally. But to use your personal animus against a person as the base for taking action such as ordering a raid on his house on the suspicion that there might be classified documents which he had taken away. No, that is absolutely wrong. But then it is Trump. Trump always does what he wants. He doesn't care whether it is right or wrong.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Fabian. Appreciate you joining in. As far as these searches that are now being conducted, this is when it comes to the FBI, which has been leading these raids at John Bolton's residence. And Donald Trump has been also lashing out at his former national security advisor, calling Bolton as a lowlife, where Donald Trump is of the opinion that he was never a fan and has accused him of being bad at his job. The FBI, which is searching the residence of the former Trump administration national security advisor John Bolton as part of an investigation on what is being said into the handling of certain classified documents. And this development is coming at a time when John Bolton, on one of the multiple issues that has been raised by him, especially when it comes to the tariff hike and how India mainly has been singularly targeted and sidelined. This is something that he has voiced his concern against the decision that was taken by the Trump administration. But when we speak of President Donald Trump, here's what he says.
No, I don't know about it. I saw it on television this morning. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. He's a real sort of a lowlife. When I hired him, he served a good purpose because, as you know, he was one of the people that forced Bush to do the ridiculous bombings in the Middle East. Bolton, he wants to always kill people, and he's very bad at what he does. But he worked out great for me because every time he doesn't talk, he's like a very quiet person, except on television. If he could say something bad about Trump, he'll always do that.
He had criticized on what he has called as Washington's confused approach towards India and questioned the decision to impose a steep tariff and a penalty, unspecified penalty on New Delhi, while exempting China from similar measures. This is said to be one of the other reasons that seems to have triggered when it comes to Donald Trump and the FBI, which is ordered as far as these raids are now concerned. But John Bolton, who has been outspoken about the U.S. president's recent tariff measures, because here, when it comes to the mention of India that has happened, when he has criticized of Trump slapping tariffs on India for buying Russian oil, but not China, which also purchases Russian oil, and it may have pushed India further into Beijing-Moscow axis. This is something that was questioned by Donald Trump, and he says that this is nothing but lack of focus by Trump administration is an unforced error. We had a conversation also with him when it comes to our group editor-in-chief, Navika Kumar, speaking on this recent development that has happened over trade tariffs. Here is how he responded.
Joining me on the news hour tonight is Ambassador John Bolton, who was the National Security Advisor to President Trump in his first term. Thank you very much, Mr. Bolton, for speaking to me. President Trump has been on a tariff imposition spree, and India's been on the receiving end, subjected to a 50% tariff. The additional 25% tariff is going to kick in from the 27th of August. And this is a penalty by the Americans for India deciding to purchase Russian oil, in the words of President Trump. Clearly, India is unhappy, but as someone who's worked with Trump before, what's his thinking behind this? Because clearly this is hypocrisy as far as Russia is concerned.
Well, it's very hard to say what the thinking is behind Trump's decision. I do think that it's important that ways be found to cut off the supply of exports from Russia involving oil and gas, which are basically being used to fund their war in Ukraine. And the secondary sanctions in Trump's approach are designed to penalize Russia by penalizing the purchasers of the oil and gas. I think there are other ways to do it, like removing the price cap on the prohibition of exporting Russian gas. That we can't import Russian gas or oil into the U.S. or into Europe, but the price cap allows others to buy it. And I would just eliminate that. But I think the main contrast at the moment is that Trump has not imposed secondary sanctions, secondary tariff on China. In fact, the negotiations with China, which are supposed to come to their end date next week, look like they're about to be extended for another 90 days. And there's no explanation, no reason that anybody's giving why China, which purchases significantly more Russian oil and gas than India or Turkey or others, should somehow be exempt from the sanctions. So there are a number of contradictions in what Trump is doing, and I think from an outsider's perspective, it's very hard to explain why that's true.
India has responded strongly to what Trump has decided and also referred to American double standards and hypocrisy. The first is that the United States imports uranium and fertilizers from Russia and punishes India for purchasing oil. Well, the same money US gives Russia also funds the war in Ukraine. Secondly, the Biden administration had actually encouraged India to purchase oil from Russia to keep global oil prices stable. So shouldn't India be understandably outraged?
Well, I would say in terms of U.S. imports from Russia, that Trump may impose tariffs on those imports. You know, in 2024, the last year for which there are full statistics, the total American imports from Russia were only $3 billion. And I think it's almost entirely fertilizer and fertilizer-related chemicals. I'd be happy to ban the import of anything from Russia. I mean, I don't know why we're subsidizing them even to the extent of $3 billion, which is not much given total U.S. trade with the world. And Trump's tariffs may have that effect. We'll have to see what he does. But it's certainly the case that it's legitimate to say, well, how can you complain about what we're doing when you're importing things from Russia? So I think the answer to that is to stop the imports from Russia. But this question of the export of oil and gas is a problem, and it's the principal way in which Russia finances the war in Ukraine. So I think a more productive way to do this is to try and find alternative sources of oil and gas at acceptable prices.
But speaking of Donald Trump, the president has now appointed his close political aide, Sergio Gore, as the next U.S.